welcome back to Central Arizona College. I'm Chef Aceto, your culinary instructor for French cuisine. Today we will be doing a particularly interesting method of cooking, which initially is for steaming, and that is called en papillote. En papillote refers to paper, which we will be placing our fish. Today we're going to be using fish into the paper pouch and steaming with white wine and aromatics. You can also use chicken breasts or shrimp. Today's demo will be we will be cooking salmon. When cooking en papillote, there are usually vegetables, herbs, and seasonings, including such items as black pepper, fresh dill. For aromatics, I'm today going to be using celery, onion, and carrots. When cooking en papillote, it creates a pouch with liquid inside and thus creating an environment for steaming. Because it is a delicate and soft textured item, fish is especially well adapted to this kind of cooking method. Today we will be using salmon. Dover sole or other kinds of fish can also be used. By this method, vegetarian recipes en papillote can be found for mushrooms and spring vegetables. Aromatic herbs and seasonings used depend on the recipe and the desired flavor of the finished dish. Onions, garlic, dill, fennel, ginger, and thyme can also be used. Today we will be enhancing our dish with a sprinkling of fresh lemon zest. A small amount of liquid may be added to the pouch, such as wine, lemon juice, or stock. A little oil may also be used. However, salmon is a particularly oily fish and will not be necessary. Salt and pepper, of course, are a must. Baking time and temperature will depend on the item being cooked. Because you can't see inside the packet to tell whether it is done or not, you may need to rely on the recipe or trial and error. Parchment paper is the traditional wrapping used to create the cooking packet, as denoted by the name of the technique. It is a sturdy paper that has been processed in a way that particularly dissolves the paper to increase its stability and make the surface slick, so food won't stick to it. It won't also allow for liquid to escape. You have to fold the ends in order to keep the steam and liquid inside, however. I'll be showing you how to do that on the video. Aluminum foil can also be used if the parchment paper is unavailable, although the preferred method is with paper. So a standard baking paper or parchment paper is what we'll be using today. In a pinch, a clean brown paper bag would work for cooking en papillote. However, some of the liquid might escape. For Asian cooking, large leaves such as banana leaves may be used for cooking en papillote, serving the same purpose as parchment or aluminum foil, but making for a more colorful presentation. Today I'm going to show you how to fabricate a whole salmon. This is a farm-raised salmon, very different from wild-caught salmon in that it has been dyed with a pink dye. Real wild salmon is a deep salmon color, so thus you can see the difference. When shopping for salmon, make sure that the eye of the fish is clear, the flesh is firm, and there's very little odor. It should smell like the ocean. Now we're ready to fabricate. All right, we're going to start off by examining the gills, making sure that they are bright in color and firm. As I mentioned, the eye clarity is very important. I'm going to be very careful with my butchering knife and carefully start cutting off the head, following the natural line of the gills. I'll do this to both sides. And then give it a final cut, severing the head from the body. Next, I'm going to go down the bloodline just enough to start. You can hear the cracking of the bones. The fish, of course, has already been gutted. All the way down, piercing through the body, thus separating the two halves. Now I'm going to continue to cut. And I have two sides of salmon. Using my boning knife, I'm going to go just along the bloodline of the center of the fish fillet. And it's a natural area where you can feel the bones. Stay close to the bones so that you don't lose any of the flesh. Can you tell what I'm doing here? Notice I'm very careful. A well-trained butcher that does this a lot will be a lot faster than I am. Okay, then we have the fin portion here. There we are, we're almost through. Okay, now I'm going to take my big knife, cut through the fin area. And now we'll give it a final trim here. And there we have our usable portion. I'm going to show you how to skin the fish next. Sometimes we want to skin our fish, sometimes we don't. See how I've started it on the tail end? I'm going to grasp the skin very firmly using my knife, my big knife. I'm going to gently pull. However, I'm letting the knife do most of the work. See how it's just coming off? This brown shiny area is fat. I'm going to continue through. Of course, a sharp knife is essential to making this work. And there I have my fish skin. I can throw that into the stock pot. Now I'm ready to fabricate actual usable portions. There's one. I have a couple of stray fish bones. I'm going to use my special tweezers to remove those. You have to use your hand and feel. I can feel one here. They usually come right out. Come right out. See how easy that is? That's a usable portion of fish. There's another, and so on, and so on. Now to remove the spinal column from the other end, I've started cutting. This is a little more difficult because you can probably hear that cracking. It's me going through the bones. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way through to the end of the fish. Save that for the stock pot. Do a little trimming. Take off the fins. And we're ready to make our fillet portions. I've cut our parchment paper to about maybe 14 by 14. This will encompass the entire fish fillet, which we just fabricated. Before I do that, I'm going to add some aromatics to flavor the fish. So, aromatics. Let's try putting some fresh thyme. A little bit of fresh thyme. Some flat leaf parsley leaves. This is 1 portion of fish we're cooking, 1 portion per paper envelope. Some fresh dill, a little bit of lemon zest. Let's place our fish over our bed of celery, diced carrots, which we already cut, a little bit of onion. Now we can place our fish on top. I'm going to put a clove of garlic in there, very small. Since it'll be steaming, it isn't necessary to cut everything so small. I'm also going to add a little bit of peppercorn and a pinch of salt. We're going to need some liquid in order for this to actually steam. So I'm going to leave a hole so that I can pour a little bit of fresh white wine. Let's add a little bit of lemon. Possibilities are endless on what I could put into my paper pouch. I'm also going to add a small cube of butter. That's a lot of flavor, a lot of things that'll be happening in this paper pouch. So now fold. I'm going to grab the 2 ends together. Fold them together. Not quite. Some adjustment. Okay, now I'm going to start crimping the ends. Can you see that? See how I've done that? Secure it. Because of the slick surface of the paper, this will be able to be handled well with water in a 350-degree oven, being careful to leave one end open so that I can pour some white wine. Now we're ready to add our liquid to our pouch. I left a little funnel-shaped hole. How much water? How much wine? Just enough to get the steam process going on the inside. I'm going to seal up my little hole, and we're ready to place into the oven. Next, we're going to do tourné potatoes, which means turned. This is an example of one. It's a 7-sided football-shaped potato. This could be sautéed, roasted, primarily used in upscale French cuisine. Today, I'm going to show you how to create that. So, select your potatoes. I've selected 3 relatively small potatoes. Some people like to pre-peel these. I choose not to. Now, let's begin. I'll try to explain this as slowly as possible. First, I begin by making my first cut. Notice how I'm going forward slowly in a methodical, careful process. I'm using a special tourné knife. What happens if I don't have a tourné knife? I can use a paring knife. This, of course, requires diligence, skill, and a lot of practice. So far, so good. Then we'll cut the ends off. Do a little trimming, perhaps, if necessary. And there you have a 7-sided tourné potato. Now it's time to saute our turned potatoes. I'm just going to use a little bit of butter. I've already blanched my potatoes. Remember, we talked about blanching when we did our beans. I'm going to season just a tad with salt and fresh cracked pepper until I get a nice golden color on the outside. We can serve this with our fish en papillote and our sauteed vegetables. So let's just give that some time to thoroughly cook. Now we're ready to blanch our cleaned haricots verts. Haricots verts are a special variety of bean. They're more petite. I want to blanch so that I can secure the chlorophyll in the beans and they turn a very beautiful bright green color. How long am I going to blanch for? Probably a minute, just until they're tender and ready to saute, so they're slightly undercooked. Notice how I left the tendril at the end. This makes for a beautiful presentation. Once these are thoroughly blanched, I will shock them. A couple more seconds. I'm also going to put a little bit of fresh sea salt. Bright green and ready to shock. By shocking, I mean stopping the cooking process by immersing the beans into cold, iced water, arresting the cooking. Now we're going to be ready to saute. Shocked beans, nice and cool, stop cooking. Adding a little butter to my saute pan, letting it get completely melted. Without burning, I'm going to add my shocked beans, lightly toss. I've also prepared some heirloom carrots, also that have been shocked. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, fresh cracked is always best. Since we blanched our beans and carrots, they're already soft. About another minute, and we'll be ready to serve. Some people like their vegetables cooked more than others. I like mine to be firm and delicious. After about 10 to 12 minutes, I've removed our pouch from the oven. I'm ready to place it onto a plate. This can also be a nice presentation. Now I'm ready to open, release the steam, and there you have delicious salmon en papillote, Beurre Blanc. A Beurre Blanc sauce can be used in fish or chicken. Today we're going to be adding it to our fish en papillote. First, I want to start out with a good quality, drinkable white wine. If you're underage, supervision of parents. Get that to be very hot. We'll let that heat up. I'm going to be sauteing in my white wine some finely diced shallots. Shallots, of course, are a member of the onion family. What happens if I don't have any shallots? I can use onion. Saute with a little bit of garlic as well. Finely chopped. When making Beurre Blanc, this swirling motion is extremely important, as that's how we incorporate the butter into the hot, steaming wine. See how much I have at the bottom of the pan? I'm going to reduce this by approximately half. What I'm doing is getting all the rich flavor of the shallots and the garlic incorporated, delicious aromatic flavor. As soon as I get to that point, A little bit more. This happens relatively quickly as, look, it's a very small amount in the pan. Never reduce until there's no more liquid. If you've done that, you've gone too far. The steam emanating from the pan. Okay, I think I'm there. I'm going to turn off my heat. Still have liquid in the pan. And I'm going to very carefully add my butter. Nice cold butter cubes. I'm going to add a teeny bit of heat. Not too much, very low. It's seasoned with a little salt, a little white pepper. The French like to use white pepper a lot. Add a little bit more butter. The swirling motion helps to incorporate the wine and the butter. Very fragile sauce, as you can imagine. I'm ready to add another cube of butter. Notice how it's nicely melting, creamy in appearance, rich in aroma. Very fragile. What is this sauce going to do once I put it on the plate? It could break or separate. In order to prevent that, I'm going to now add, see now we have a rich butter sauce. I'm going to add just a touch of, how much is a touch? How about that much? A bit of cream to make a rich, creamy, buttery Beurre Blanc. Salmon cooked en papillote, sautéed blanched vegetables, and tourneed potatoes with the rich Beurre Blanc sauce. What could be more French? Bon appetit!